Alright everyone, welcome back to Planet Zoo. Today we're going to be expanding the Bonobo exhibit that we built up in the last episode. I talked extensively about how I want to expand the exhibit and I thought about how I could possibly do that. And I'm definitely happy with how it's turned out. You'll see it all complete by the end of the episode, although unfortunately we didn't have enough time to add any new animals. And the reason for that is because I did leave this episode a bit late as compared to normal, though I had plenty of time to finish the episode. But then all of a sudden, within one day, I got tons of emails about work that I needed to complete. And unfortunately, real life still comes before these Planet Zoo videos, so I had to complete those out of the way before I started making this one. But hey, can't complain too much, I still got to make it, and to be honest, I'm really proud of the progress that we did make in this episode. Not only did we make the accommodation for the bonobos a lot better, I also tackled a challenge that I've never had to tackle before, and I wouldn't have actually had the knowledge of how to do this if it wasn't for building that smaller exhibit in the last episode. You guys have seen me use the in-game filter before that shows the amount of terrain that animals can walk on. Where all the ground turns white and blue, the blue is the stuff that the bonobos can walk on, and interestingly enough that I saw in the last episode, bonobos can't apparently swim in Planet Zoo. Whether this is realistic or not, I really don't know, but either way it's something in Planet Zoo and something we can utilise to make these exhibits look a tiny bit better. Meaning if I lay out the rocks and trees in just the right places and have the barriers in just the right positions, I can actually use the water to block off most of the animals from escaping. So I didn't end up having to use that wire mesh fence that I mentioned about possibly using in the last episode. I can keep up with my kind of natural barriers, which I've got for most of the animals in this entire zoo so far. And I definitely prefer that. I think it only makes sense, especially with this being a conservational zoo, they would try to save money wherever they can so they can actually help the animals, rather than building these huge metal electrified fences for tigers or something like that. I can just have a little ridge with rocks on it, and then the tiger won't be able to escape. And to be honest, most zoos that I've seen do similar stuff like that. Obviously, they're never going to sacrifice the animal's health or happiness for the sake of saving money, or at least most zoos don't, and if they don't do that, then I won't go to them. But if you've ever been to the backstage area, whether it's food preparation or an area they go while the animals' exhibits are being cleaned by the keepers, then you'll know that generally speaking, it's not a super clean area. It's not unsanitary, but it's not really tidy. It's quite messy oftentimes, which makes sense, of course. Animals, it's really not the thing you need to be concerned about. I don't think I'm explaining this very well, but my point is zoos won't generally put extra effort into making things clean if they don't impact the animal's health or the visitor's experience. But there's always going to be exceptions. I'm sure there's some zoo in Dubai that has the most pristine workspaces and the animals eat off golden plates, but most zoos, especially the ones that actually care about their animals, won't have that luxury. Anyways, after that pointless tangent, you guys have been watching in the background me basically just placing a ton of rocks and figuring out how the exhibit barriers are actually going to work. And again, with working with bonobos, I had to keep in mind which trees were climbable, and if they were climbable, I had to be careful about where to place them so the bonobos couldn't escape. And by the end of it, they can't, thankfully, and with me being able to have a much bigger area as compared to last time, I do have a lot more options for foliage and stuff like that. I did think the last area looked a little bit bare, but it definitely looks a lot more full and a lot more natural after this episode. Now, I haven't done the measurements or anything, but from a bird's eye view, just eyeballing it, this entire area that we're doing today, and of course the part that we did in the last episode, which albeit was a lot smaller, looks way bigger than the Ruby Basin, or at least pretty big in size. It's about the same size as maybe the hippo and pygmy hippo exhibit combined. That's just from eyeballing it though, so maybe I'm exaggerating, but still. What I really think that highlights is the difference between the regions. Of course, I've said they're going to have similarities and differences to keep them looking similar, but definitely make them look like different regions. And this is just one of the ways I'm going to do that. So in the Ruby Basin, we had exhibits slotted more around the path, kind of fitting them in where they could go. But in this one, it's more putting the exhibits wherever I want them to be, and then putting the paths surrounding them. But we are coming to the end of the Bonobo exhibit now. We are going to be doing some ruin stuff in the next part. This is something that I didn't mention in the last episode. In my head, it's something that I definitely imagined, but for some reason I just forgot to mention it. So I'm going to be doing at least part of that today. For those of you who don't play Planet Zoo, the most recent DLC was released pretty much right at the start of this series. It was the South American DLC pack. And in that pack, they added some kind of ruins to Inca temples, which you can piece together to make different structures and stuff like that. And I want to have them dotted all around the plateaus. Of course, we've got kind of 3 levels to the entire plateau, and that's something that I definitely tried to do. We've got the bottom layer where the rivers run through, and that's where we're going to be housing the majority of the animals at least. Then we've got the second layer, which will have any visitor items, so that goes for paths and shops, toilets, stuff like that. And then finally, on the highest points of the plateaus, we're going to have these old ruinous structures, and it's almost as if they've been there for a super long time, which of course makes sense if they're ruins. And when we built this zoo, we kind of worked around it not to disturb the history of the area. And in the same DLC that added these ruin pieces, they also added a lot of symbolism to llamas and stuff like that. They also added the llamas in the actual game for you to make a habitat for. I don't yet plan on actually including them because, of course, COVEA, they aren't really needed. They're of least concern, at least I believe they are. If they're not, they're definitely not endangered or anything like that. So I don't really need to include them, although I will if I feel there's a place that they would actually fit. But whether or not I include the actual animal, there is a few llama statues in the game that are actually golden. There's the normal stone ones, and there you can see it, there's the golden llama. And that's just, again, something a little bit stupid, a little bit goofy that I just want to include throughout the entire region. So it's almost as if the historic people of these plateau lands honoured the llama in some kind of weird way. I don't know. The stuff that I come up with sometimes is unreal. But really quickly, I want to comment on the state of the world at the moment. Of course, most of you will know that there's all sorts of stuff going on, and I'm not going to get too political, but I did want to mention this one thing here. Since much of the world has been on lockdown, of course, zoos and other establishments have been closed, and many of them are losing money. But of course, zoos have to keep feeding their animals and paying their keepers and stuff like that. And some of them are coming close to a point where they would actually have to close, possibly permanently. Obviously, it's not at all mandatory, but I would just like to say if you have a bit of spare cash that you're not using at the moment, then I would much recommend going towards this cause. There's other stuff going on at the moment, of course. If you would rather allocate your funds to that, then I completely understand, but I just figured if in case any of you didn't know, that I'd raise a little bit of awareness and try to get some money to these establishments that need it. In the description, I'll link just a few zoos in the UK, but if you're in different countries and you'd rather donate to those zoos that maybe you've been to before and you know are really good, then of course those are options too. Anyways, I know it's not ideal, but I am a bit pressed for time at the moment, so I'm going to leave you with some music, sit back, relax, and I will meet you in the tour at the end of the video. Alright everyone, so I hope you all enjoyed the time lapse. Now it might not look like it, but since then quite a bit has changed, although it is on only very small minute things. For example, all the way up here I've changed up the grass so it's less bare, and I also added some simple breeze block pillars to keep up these paths because it looked a bit stupid with them just floating like that. The breeze block pieces are something that I definitely want to use more in this area because I think they contrast really well with the natural rocks of the plateaus, but at the same time they're a similar kind of colour to the ruinous pieces, so it's almost as if they've taken that older architecture and modernized it. But this view right here is like my favourite thing in the entire zoo. It's great. I love the fact that you can see the ruins and the llama up there on the top left. There's 2 different paths splitting off in different directions. There's all sorts of height variation, tons of different foliage, the water down to the right, and of course these sons of guns. You gonna play as a tune, mate? Thank you. Appreciate it, mate. Thanks for that. I also added more bonobos. I think we've got 8 now. I don't think we can check on here, actually. Ah, we've got 7. I think we can have 8. I'm not too sure. Either way, the exhibit's a bit more populated, of course, considering it's almost tripled in size. That definitely makes sense. But the view you get walking up this path, imagine that huge archway with tons of foliage and stuff on it. I think that's going to be so cool. I love this area so far. I think in the next episode I'm going to be working on this left path and all the stuff that looks out over here. You can also have this viewing area that looks looks over at it. I still haven't decided what I actually want to put there yet though, so feel free to suggest what you want in that area in the comments. Also, just to point it out, in the same way we had these chord lines near the water in the Ruby Basin, and we're maintaining that here, don't get me wrong, but we're also going to have these plumeria flowers small, all nestled into the rocks of the plateaus, because they look a bit like a hardier plant. The leaves are a bit darker. It might not fully make sense, but I think it's nice to have a bit of greenery on the rock faces, because there is going to be a lot of rock. In fact, I'm already lagging quite a bit just with the amount of pieces there are in this area. Of course, up here we've also got these ruins with the llama statue. It looks ridiculous, but at the same time it's really cool. Just this view is awesome to me. I love the ruins, and the trees are just placed perfectly in my opinion. I don't know what it is about this, but I love it. So I'm hoping to make more things similar to this. I thought obviously the ruins will be different. They'll still have roots and vines growing all over them, and we've got this tamarind tree on the right. But yeah, as much as we have done a lot in this episode, it really doesn't look like it. There isn't a whole ton to comment on. I would once again like to remind you guys about the links I've left in the description about some UKZs you can donate to. Like I said, you obviously don't have to, but I just would like to make a point of that. Anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed. I've got some big plans for next week, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!